Hi everyone, welcome to our session, Developer Deep Dive on Dashboard Extensions. Thank you all for coming to this session. I know it's one of the last one of today, so thank you all to make it. I hope you're not too hungover from yesterday. So let's get started. So with Geraint, we decided to tweak a little bit, to change a little bit the title of the sessions. We decided to call it Unlock Your Superpowers with Extensions. We will explain why in a minute. But first, quick question for you. Who is he? Mario, okay. Mario. I see an Italian person at the back. And do you play Mario, Super Mario? Yes. Yeah?
Have you ever wanted to play a game whilst you're at work? If you would get away with it, would you? I suppose there's probably a few people.
If I can tell you, it's possible. Thanks to extensions, I can play Mario in desktop. Yes! Yeah, how awesome is that, guys? So you can see I'm not the best one, but yeah, I need to practice. Geraint is much better than me on that. So yeah, just to show you what is possible with extensions. The possibilities are endless. The only limitation is your creativity. Then today on stage, I'm here with Geraint. Geraint is a product consultant in our pre-sales team. He's working with me in London, covering all EMEA. And Geraint is a geek. In his free times, he likes to hack Tableau. He's not on his screen, he doesn't have Tableau Desktop, but he has code. And yeah, I'm really glad to co-present this session with Geraint today. And he has a superpower. That is actually, you will hear in a minute, Welsh, but it doesn't sound Welsh. Thanks God, because I don't understand Welsh accents.
And I'm here today with Geraldine. Geraldine is a product consultant in the same team as me. She comes from a computer science background. She's been with Tableau for more than 2 years now. Geraldine also has a bit of a superpower. As you can tell, she has a bit of a French accent, but she isn't actually French. She's from the beautiful islands of Mauritius.
And Geraint and I, we have two things in common. The first one is that nobody is calling us by our first name. I'm here on stage with Gaz.
And I'm here on stage with Gigi.
And as you can see, in our free time, we like to dress as superheroes.
Okay, so let's go through a little bit, a little briefing before we jump into the Extensions API. So there's a bunch of APIs which we already have at Tableau. So we've got the JavaScript API for embedding content in web portals. We have the REST API and the Document API for automating some of those server tasks and manipulating Tableau files. Then we have the two data APIs, the Extract API and the Web Data Connector, so you can manage your extracts and manage your connectivity to web services. And finally, the latest addition to the family is the Extensions API. Now, the Extensions API, what we're going to do today is reveal the art of the possible. We're going to show you some examples, and we're going to give you a baseline understanding of what an extension is and how you would start, what you need to start thinking about if you want to go and code one for yourself, go and build one out. So, as I said, we're going to go over some use cases. We're going to give you 3 different demos to show you perhaps some of the art of the possible. If you were in the keynote the other day, you would have seen some demonstrations in that session. Then we're going to go through building an extension. We're going to spend the majority of the time going through some of the steps you would need to consider to build one out. We'll spend a couple of minutes on security before we touch on the roadmap and what's to come. So let's start off with what an extension is. Whenever we have built out dashboards in the past, we're limited by the functionality that Tableau has. But with dashboard extensions, you can now embed a web app right directly within your extension. So we can see here that Elastic Guy is nicely pointing out this section of the dashboard is actually an extension. And extensions allow you to increase the flexibility and functionality of your dashboard. Okay, so Gigi, do you mind running us through some of the use cases?
So now we know what is an extensions. So we released it in Las Vegas last year at TC. Since then, we saw some awesome work from different partners, customers, people from the community. But what are the most common use cases when we talk about extensions? The first one is closing the loop. You know how many times did you were on Tableau Desktop, on Tableau Server, and you had to jump on another applications. Say, okay, I'm Tableau, I'm jumping there, coming back to Tableau, updating, creating new actions. And the most common use case in this category is, for example, write back. If you want to update a line in your data, you have to go back to your Excel spreadsheet, for examples. Then, the second use case is light it up. If you want to do custom visualizations or really fancy visualization in Tableau, you can do it, but it's taking some time, and you have to look online for documentation, for example. And you can also integrate new applications inside of Tableau. And then your dashboard is an application itself. Then that's the use cases. But what did the customers, what did the partner build as an extensions? Then we will see some demos. Gaz and myself, we wanted to select 3 extensions that we found awesome from the community. So we picked 3 of them just to show you some examples. And they are all from EMEA. So that's really cool, and we are really glad to take only EMEA customer partners. So, how many of you try to do radar chart in Tableau? A lot of you. You went to look for documentations, you were trying to find, you went on the community, is why we have so many blog posts, videos on radar charts. And did you already use Show Me to build visualizations? Yeah. If I can tell you that you can do Show Me More. Yeah, it's possible thanks to info topics and mailing and titling. So if we jump back to Tableau Desktop, I will show you how you can do that in a minute. So no more Mario, time to work. We have a superhero dashboard. And with Gaz, we went to the conversations, we're like, yeah, just do nice superheroes, nice one, have a secret identity, or they share their identity to anyone. So we created a bar chart, we created different types of visualizations. But although that the radar chart was most appropriate here. So then, I'm using extensions to build this radar chart. I'm going to drag and drop my extension. I can select, I already have it on my laptop. And then I can select a visualizations. So mine was identity. I want a radar chart. I want the aligned group, I think, and the axis to be the identity. Select my measure, and I can click on OK. Clearly, we saw that we can see that identity, the blue one, is bad characters and has a secret identity. In 1 or 2 clicks, I managed to create my radar charts with tooltips. I can also interact with it and select barred characters. Directly, I can see that, yeah, we saw secret identity, bad characters mostly. How cool is that? Okay, I think you prefer Mario. So that was one of the demo. And it's thanks to the guys from Info Topics, mailing and titling. I'm not sure how to pronounce, sorry, their names.
Thanks, Gigi. So it's a very common use case, probably one of the most common requests when it comes to extensions is the ability for a write back. So there are so many different use cases here where you could be perhaps adding comments to marks as we saw yesterday in the keynote. It could be that you want to submit a forecast on the numbers that you see in the dashboard. It might be that you want to adjust inventory, or perhaps you're arranging your project planning and you want to input some additional data. Well, that becomes possible with extensions. And I think there's already a handful of extensions already built by the community, but we've chosen one here to demo today. So here I have a project management dashboard. I can see the number of different projects that we're working on and the projects by owner. And I want to add in some work that I'm doing. So I can go up to my extension up here. I can configure. Now I've already established a connection to my server, so I don't need to reconnect. But now I'm going to add in myself, extensions project. Okay, I'm going to enter in a draft date. Okay, and a due date. Okay, we can enter in a row ID as well, just random numbers for now. Okay, now I hit apply. That row of data has now been added to the database, and then we can refresh the dashboard to retrieve all of this additional information. Okay, so now we can see that I've added my extensions project timeline here, and I've got a new entry here into this project by owner. And this is a very basic example of how you could input data. You could, for example, have the dashboard pull out information from, have the extension pull out information from the dashboard before you enter comments back. So this one has been provided by Geraint Davies from the Information Lab, or the Info Lab. But we have one more demo, so Gigi, would you mind showing that one to us?
Yes. So yesterday I did Tableau Doctor. It was all day. I met awesome customers. But at least 3 of them asked me for these extensions to show dynamic images. I know some of them are in the room, and they came to the session just for this one. So they are working mostly in retails, and they have a lot of different products. And they have shoes, t-shirts, they have the name of the product, but they don't know what the product looks like most of the time. So they have a URL in the database, and they want to use it in the dashboard, and they want to show multiple images. Then it's possible, thanks to BizStory. They created an extension that is image filtering. I will show you in a minute how it works. So I decided to stop my job at pre-sales, and I'm going to sell swags. Everyone likes swags. Then I'm new at these jobs. I know that we have caps, we have stickers, we have plans for different kind of swags. Then I created these dashboards, and I have the URL of my images in my data. And I use that here as an extensions. So if I go to configure, I can show you. I'm taking the URL, I don't know sure, I have the pronunciations. I have it locally on my laptop. And is how I can get the images from the swag shops. So I know, for example, I didn't know that we were selling Tableau for Dummies. I can look at the price, I can unselect the others. They are all URL images from my data. I map them in Tableau, and yeah, I can have a look. I can look at only these ones. I can filter my dashboard based on the image. So let's go back. So that's image filters by Mark and his team from BizStories. Now we saw demos. What I'm really drag and dropping when I do the demo, when we did the demo with Gaz, we are drag and dropping a T-Rex. What is a T-Rex? It's a manifest written in XML pointing to the web page. Do you know why it's called T-Rex, by the way? Nah. So T is for Tableau, EX is for extensions, and R is to make it a T-Rex. And the T-Rex is always the best dinosaur in every movie, so we made a good choice, I think. And guys, I'm not a programmer, I'm not a software engineer. I don't know the community. How can I get the extensions if I don't have it locally on my laptop?
I'm glad you asked, Gigi. We've already thought of this scenario, and we know that not everybody's developers. And people are used to the drag and drop and ease of use with Tableau. So we're going to make it very easy for you to access extensions that are built by the community. We're going to have the gallery where you'll be able to browse extensions built by people inside Tableau, partners, customers, and download them to use for yourself.
So we have you covered.
Exactly. Okay. So let's start building. So today, in the rest of this session, we're going to cover off some of the steps you need to consider when you start building out your extension. We're going to come onto the setup file, the manifest, the T-Rex file that we just mentioned. We'll then come on to initialization. So what happens when you initially drag in an extension and it starts communicating with Tableau. We're going to talk about getting some of the data, either the underlying data or the metadata about the worksheets, dashboard names, etc. Then we'll come on to listening events, so changing the mark selected or updating a filter in the dashboard. And then the next step then is the persistent settings. So if you want to save settings from within the extension as part of the workbook, we'll show you how to do that. And then finally, we'll complete the loop with Tableau actions. So let's get started with the setup and manifest. So you can imagine this a little bit like getting your Iron Man suit on, getting yourself ready for battle. So the setup, to get set up, you need to have two things ready to go. First of all, we need to go to GitHub. This is where you can get the SDK. We also have samples and tutorials, and the code that we're going to be going through today is going to be is the tutorial. So this isn't a hands-on session, so we're not going to be going into the detail line by line through the code. We'll just give you an idea of what's out there, and then you guys can go and explore in your own time and go through the tutorial should you wish to do so. Second of all, we need a web server. So this is the brains of the extension. So in our instance, we have a local web server that is running, but you could also host this in the cloud if you wanted to as well, as some of our partners have with their extensions. Okay, so let's take a look through the manifest file. The first thing to draw your attention to is the author information. The author information here is really important because when somebody is using an extension, they need to be aware of who it is that authored it, how to get in contact with them, and when Tableau gives you security prompts, this is where it gets the information from. So you can see here we've got the name of the project, the organization where it came from, an email address, and the website. Next, we have the call to the web page. So this is where you'll be hosting your extension. In this instance, we have a local host, but as I said, you could host that on another web server. And then finally, we've got the permissions and also the name, how it's going to appear in the dashboard. So the permissions is really important because if you require information such as the data sources that the dashboard is connecting to or access the underlying data, you need to request the permission from Tableau to access that. And that's done here with this full data. Okay. So Gigi, can you run us through the next step? Yeah, once we've created that manifest file, what do we do?
So I see a lot of people taking pictures. Just for your information, we are giving you the slide after. So we just remove our picture wearing superhero suit, but you will have a rest. So let's talk about the initializations. We have a setup, we have a manifest, we are ready to fight. So let's do push-up? No. Now going to push-ups. Then we will just initialize the extensions. And for that, you have to familiarize yourself with a namespace. You see them here, you will see them often in our code. Tableau extension, not to confuse with the web data connector or the JavaScript API. The dashboard content, to have all the information from your dashboard. We will talk later on the settings, and the environment is where you put the extensions, if you are, which environment you are working on. Then, have a look at the code now. We have a tableau.extension.initialize and synchronize, and that's just saying, hi Tableau, I'm an extension, I'm ready to be used. Use my superpower, please. And then we are using the namespace dashboard, .extension.dashboard content. I mean, you can read, I don't have to say, but yeah, it's just to have the name of the dashboards. Okay, that's a lot of code. Let's go to the extension itself. So, guys mentioned a web server. We are using Node.js and NPM. It's running there, just as a proof. We're not going more in details on that. Then, let's go back to our superhero dashboard. Drag and drag the extensions. I pick one. And we are the step where we initialize it. We get the dashboard name. So here, you have from comic characters, the name of our dashboard. I want from TC Europe, TCE. Let's reload this dashboard. Just to show that I'm not lying, it's dynamically updating. So hello from TC. So that's easy. That's actually too easy now. I know, I don't know you, but when I'm coding, I'm never right the first time. Never, unfortunately. So what do I need to do? Debugging. How can we debug code in Tableau? In the extensions, but in Tableau. So for that, we have you cover, and myself as well. So you just have to run Tableau desktop from this command line. By that, you will have a debugging mode activated. And if we open this dashboard again, and we drag and drop the extension again. And here, everything is working as we expect. But what if we want to debug? You have to check here the debug options. And when you have it set, you can go. We use Chromium because it's a navigation browser in Tableau. You can refresh it. Okay, should it work? Well, let's have a look at, I was trying to have a look at the image filter earlier. I was curious about how they coded it. So I had a look at it at the code. I tried to debug mode, and it's just to show you how it's working. So here, I have a console. If I have any error message, you would see it here. We also see the console log that we put in, because of course we don't have any error message. We did everything well. And the most interesting part is having the two aside. I will show you why in a minute. So you can really see what is the code. So here I'm looking at the code. I can see which part of the extension is related to. So Tableau, and you can debug it directly with Chromium and see exactly what is happening in your extensions. So if you are like me, we have you covered as well. Then let's go more in details. Let's get the metadata, the information on our dashboard. How we can get that? We are not reading in mind as, is it Professor X? Yes. We are using functions. For example, here, we are getting all the worksheets on the dashboards. We are displaying them in buttons. How did we do that? We use first the namespace to get the worksheets, the name of the workbook, to get the workbook. Then we had a look at the worksheet name by looping. We had a table and looping into the worksheets table with all the names. So you can see you have worksheet name at the bottom. And we are adding it to the button. So that's one thing. And the other thing is use getSelectedMark, for example, in Synchronize. So you can select marks on the visualization and see it directly in your extensions. By using this function, let's jump back to see that in action. Getting. So then I can see first appearance, I need to select it first. So let's select the first one. I like the vintage movies. So I select the first movies on the left. So I can see first appearance, I can select the worksheets. And then I have my data that I selected in my extensions. I can see which comics, which one I need to watch, directly in my dashboards, with the functions we get selected, marked, and synchronized. But I know that I like the vintage movies, but gas is more new movies, the more the new ones. So let's select the new one. Oh, it's not updating. Gas, can you fix it?
I can certainly have a go. So far, what we've done is we're launching this dashboard extension, which is taking the state of the selected marks in that moment. So what we need to do to be able to listen to events such as marks change, selected mark change, or an updated filter or change parameter, is we need to add an event listener. I forget the name of this lady, but it looks like she's listening to events. Okay, so first of all, we need to add an event listener, and we need to specify what that event type is, and then we would call a handling function, which the handling function can be elsewhere in your extension, and that can be doing anything that you wish. So here we have an event listener. We also have the event name, so here we've got mark selection changed, and then we call then the handling function. And in this instance, this is to do something with the event object that's returned. So let's take a look and see how this would work. So I'll jump back to the dashboard. I'll remove this extension. Okay. Select the next one. Select the worksheet again. Okay, now it's pulling through all of the marks. Now, I don't know that many of the unknown superheroes, but I know quite a few of the more popular ones. So if I select all of those, you can see that the dashboard extension has changed dynamically with those. Okay, so that's great. I've built a dashboard. I've got an extension in. I want to share this with other people, and I want the dashboard to always be pointing at this scatter plot. But one of the issues that you'll see if I was to save this workbook, close the workbook, and then reopen it, you will see that when the dashboard opens again, it's asking me to select that worksheet again. That's not the end experience I want for my end users. I want them to feel as though the extension is natively in the dashboard itself. So let's go back and talk a little bit about persistent settings. So as I said, persistent settings is all about enhancing that user experience, making sure that the dashboard feels like it, that the extension feels as a native part of the extension. So I forget the name of this guy as well. Does anybody know his name? Dr. Strange. Yeah, he does look a bit strange. Okay, so as I said, it's all about providing that smooth user experience for those that aren't familiar with extensions or just don't really want to know what an extension is. They just want it to work in the background for them. Now, when you use settings namespace, you save these settings as part of the file itself, the XML. So it's not to be used for sensitive information like passwords or tokens. For that, you can use cookie browsers. So it's just to be aware that all of the text is stored as plain text. Okay, so the first thing that you would go to do if you wanted to start to save some settings that are relevant to your extension is you use the settings.set namespace. So you specify a key string of your choosing and then enter in a value. And you can go about saving all of these settings. You can have multiple settings that you want to save, but they won't actually be written into the workbook until you use the settings.saveAsync function. And then, of course, you can use the get function to pull out those saved settings. So a little look at what it could look like in the code. You can see here then that we've got the setting, the worksheet name. So as I open up the dashboard that has the extension embedded within it, it isn't then going to prompt me because I'm saving the worksheet name using the set function and then writing that into the Tableau workbook using the save async. Okay. All right, so let's take a look. So I'll bring in my extension again. Okay, I'm going to select first appeared, maybe change some selections. Okay, seems functional. Now if we save this workbook, close it, and reopen. We can see that it's loading. It's remembered my selection. It's saved that into the file, and now I don't need to reselect which worksheet I want it to be pointing to. Okay, Gigi, can you tell us what Tableau Actions are all about?
Yeah, sure. So let's recap quickly what we saw. We saw setup and manifest. You need a web server to host your extensions. You need initializations. With the namespace, we saw the namespace, how important they are. We found them in the code earlier. We saw it quite often today. We saw how to get the metadata, the information on the worksheets. We saw that the event, so changing the selection, for example, is updating our extensions. We saw for the persistent settings that you have the possibility to save the user prompt and let the user having the best experience that they can with extensions. But we saw only one-way communication here. Is the dashboards to the extensions. What if we want the dashboards to talk to the dashboard, the extension to talk to the dashboard itself? Both-way communications. Does it make sense? Yeah. So that's Tableau Actions. And with superheroes as an actions. Some example of actions. If you want to refresh your data source. So you saw with the write back, and once you write back to your data source, you need to refresh the connections. Then you need a refresh functions. That's the first one. If you want to select marks in your worksheets, you can use select marks by value in synchronize. And if you created parameters in Tableau, and you want them to update dynamically, for example, then you can use the change value in synchronize, for example. Yeah. Someone is really interested by the last one. I can hear it. So what are the actions? In actions. In our code, what we are going to change is the headers of our columns. We will add a hypertext to these headers. And this hyperlink will actually apply a filter on our visualizations. We are also going to see that we can add a delete button for the filters. So we can delete the filters that we applied previously. So you can imagine is if you were working in Tableau, you add a filter in your worksheets, or you do select only, then you have to go back to the worksheet and delete them one by one. So let's see how is it working in Tableau, in extensions. Then this time, we'll see the actions. Let's go back to this one. So actions. I still need to select my worksheets. Then, remember, I like all movies. So I'm selecting only these ones. Actually, I don't care about the other ones. So I'm going to click only here. It's actually filtering my dashboards to select only the all movies by clicking on years. He applied the filter on my different worksheets. I can see that Gus is not happy.
I only recognize 3 of those superheroes.
He wants the other bags. Then we need to delete this filter, remove these filters. Not an issue. Done. So now we are back. Our filtering is gone. We saw that we can have both-way communications, from the dashboards to the extension and the extension to the dashboard. We built an extension in what? We saw the code, we look at the code in a couple of minutes. And how do you feel now by building your own one? I can see a lot of, I'm waiting for you to send me your extensions. But we are not in the perfect world where everyone is nice. Everyone is nice and happy, and yeah, let's go back. Not talking about that, but yeah, sometimes we have bad person, as we have bad superheroes. What if ugly man wants to steal your data? We have you covered. I mean, do we?
Yes, we do. Security is obviously really important. And so far we've covered off going through setup and initialization, getting the metadata, and getting the data is probably something that's raising a few alarm bells. People might have access to my underlying data. And data security today is as important as it's ever been. But there's a few things we've implemented to make sure that your data is secure. First of all is the protocol to the underlying extension. So in the manifest file, in that T-Rex file, the protocol that you need to use for a hosted extension is HTTPS. This ensures that additional level of security that you can be sure that you're communicating with the extension that you intended to. The only exception for this is if you're using a local host server, in which you can use HTTP. If you plan on using dashboard extensions on Tableau server, you need to whitelist that extension URL on Tableau server. So you don't get anybody in the organization pulling extensions from the web and throwing them onto content in your server, potentially exposing the data that lies on there. And finally, you remember I mentioned that security prompt, some of that user information that you have to enter into the manifest file. When you're either opening a dashboard that has an extension requiring full access, or you're bringing out an extension that requires the full access, you will get a security prompt. So this is where you can see some of the information that we entered. And if you want to make sure that people feel confident using extensions in your organization, then it's really important that this information is filled out correctly. So let's take a quick look at the source location in that T-Rex file. So here we can see we've got, this is where you would enter in the protocol, the server address, including the port information. This one is the Show Me More that's been hosted by Infotopics, and you can see the HTTPS protocol there. The only exception, as I said, is using localhost, where you can use HTTP. Okay, so Gigi, do you mind talking to us a little bit about the roadmap?
Are you excited now about extensions? Yeah, thank you, Jill. So the first thing on the roadmap is releasing the extension. So it's coming soon. It's coming in 18.2. And on the roadmap is work on the gallery to make it as simple for you to get the extensions in your dashboard. Then we saw extension on the dashboard only. What do you think about having extension everywhere? In tooltips, in the worksheet level, would be awesome. Yeah. And then extension is a new feature that we are releasing. So we are looking feedbacks, especially these two guys at the back, looking for feedbacks around the extensions. So if you have any feedback you want to share, if you already are on the developer, if you're already trying it on the beta, if you have any feedback, please share it to us. And when you are starting it, if you have anything to add, just share it with us again, and we will work as best as possible to iterate on your feedback. So today, we saw how to quickly build on extensions. We saw that an extension is a web page. You saw different use cases with different demos. And all these demos are built by customers or demos by partners, people from our community. So we saw light up extensions. I did a radar chart. You saw yesterday how to add a Sankey diagram. Or if you want to write back to your database, if you have working on project management or working in the case where you need to write back to your database at some point. It's easy. And we saw...
Yeah, exactly. We saw that building it can be easy. There are 6 steps. Set up that manifest file, the initialization. Then you can get data from the worksheets, from the workbooks, underlying data. You can add actions to listen to events that happen on your dashboard and have your extension respond. You can save those settings so that when other people use it, it's a very seamless experience. And of course, you can have the something within the extension change something within the dashboard. So we saw a very simple filter action on a column name, but as you can imagine, the possibilities are endless. So before we kind of finally round up, I just want to jump back to the Super Mario extension. So has anybody seen this before today? Okay, so we've got a couple of hands. So when I first looked at this and saw a video of it, I thought that perhaps this was a web object that was embedded within a dashboard. But in actual fact, if I jump to this sheet, this is actually a worksheet that's been built by Infotopics, where each element is a shape. And the way that the extension works is the extension is the game engine that's changing parameters. So for example, Mario here is currently at space 46, but if I shift him to space 11, then he moves back to the start. So you can think of this as an example of how you can combine the functionalities of Tableau and really enhance it by using a game engine, if you like, to bring your dashboards to life. Okay.
So today we saw how to create an extension. We saw different use cases, different demos again, but really the goal of today was to get you inspired. Get started with extension and build your own ones. Gaz and I, we did it. We are Tableau superheroes. So why not you be the next one? Join the Tableau superheroes community by building your own extensions. And I really hope from these sessions that you have all the tools to create your own extension. We are going to share the presentation. We added some links at the end as well to get you started. And I hope I will see you around in the community posting awesome extensions.